Fury Warriors have been through a plethora of changes going into Cataclysm, and I'm going to help you learn everything you need to know to hit the ground running for everything endgame. Starting off with which race you are going to want to play. If you are choosing Alliance, I would say Worgen is best. We have the Dark Flight racial ability, giving us a movement speed boost on a short cooldown, and also the Viciousness racial, adding 1% crit, which may at the start not sound like a lot, but actually this really does add up. For Horde, it's going to be Orcs or Trolls, Orcs giving the Blood Fury buff, increasing your attack power on a 2-minute cooldown. Trolls add the Berserking ability, increasing your attack speed by 20% for 10 seconds, another fantastic cooldown, and also the Beast Slaying passive. Now, this is going to increase your damage against beasts by a whopping 5%. However, in Cataclysm, if we're looking at bosses, there isn't really many that are going to benefit from this. There is a few in the Firelands raid when we get to it, but the rest of it, they're not really beasts. The main reason is going to be Berserking. For the stat priority, first and foremost, we are going to want Strength. This is the absolute best stat we can get as a Fury Warrior, and we will be getting it on basically all of our gear. We're then going to want to get our hit cap to the 8% soft cap. Don't forget, if you have gone to Draenei, you will actually need less than everyone else due to their ratio. Now, you may or may not be aware that with our hit cap, I did say soft cap. That's right. At 8%, it's ensuring that none of our special attacks are going to miss, but we can also go up to a hard cap of 27%, which will mean that none of our normal or auto attacks, etc., will also miss. The main priority is getting it first and foremost to the 8% soft cap, however. Then we're going to look at getting Critical Strike, which again will be increased by 1% if you did go Worgen as I suggested. Then we're going to want to get our expertise to the cap of 26. This is actually the chance at which an enemy can dodge or parry the attacks you are putting out against them. After that, we're just going to go for mastery or haste and all other secondary stats. For our actual mastery, it's actually going to depend on if we are enraged or not. Increases the benefit of abilities that cause or require you to be enraged by 45%. Each point of mastery increases the enrage effects by an additional 5.6%. Basically, as Fury Warriors, we can actually get enraged, doing more damage, etc., and this is going to enhance the effect of that. I'm sure it comes as no shock that as Fury Warriors, most of our talents are going into the Fury tree. We're going to start off putting 2 out of 2 into Cruelty, increasing the critical strike chance of some of our main attacks. 3 out of 3 going into Battle Trance, your Bloodthirst, Mortal Strike and Shield Slam. Mainly here we're going to be using Bloodthirst, that's the Fury ability. Have a 15% chance to make your next special attack that costs more than 5 rage, consume no rage at all. If you're wondering what special attack we're going to be using when this procs, it's going to be this one here, Heroic Strike. This is our main Fury dump. If you don't know, Fury is our main resource that we generate and spend. Heroic Strike, costing 30 rage, is our kind of way we're going to be dumping or getting rid of all of our excess rage. And when that Battle Trance procs, that's what we're going to be using it on. On to the next line, we've got 2 out of 2 into Executioner, where your Execute has a 100% chance to improve your melee attack speed by 5% for 9 seconds, and that can stack up to 5 times. Execute is this ability here, attempting to finish off a wounded foe, consuming up to 20 additional rage to deal up to X amount of additional damage. So it's going to consume a lot of rage. We can only use that when the enemy is at or below 20% health. So using it in succession is going to increase our attack speed stacking due to that talent. We've then got Booming Voice, reducing the cooldown of our shouts by 30 seconds and causing those abilities to generate more rage. These mainly are commanding and battle shouts here. You can see they do both share a cooldown that is now 30 seconds. Battle shout basically is increasing the strength and agility of your party and raid members, whereas commanding shout is increasing the health and therefore stamina of our party and raid members. One is survivability and one is for damage. And battle shout will generate 30 rage. We've then got Rude Interruption. Successfully interrupting a spell with Pummel increases your damage by 5% for 30 seconds. Pummel is here, it's on a 10-second cooldown, and this is our kick or interrupt, interrupting our enemy spellcasting. So when we do successfully interrupt a spell, it's actually going to also increase our damage done, meaning there's actually some incentive for the DPS to actually be doing their job and interrupting. Going on to the next line, we've put 3 out of 3 into Flurry, increasing our attack speed by 25% for the next 3 attacks or swings of our weapon after we land a critical strike. Death Wish is a cooldown we're getting here. When we activate it, we're going to get that Enrage ability or buff, and that is actually going to last for 30 seconds, increasing our damage by 29%. Lastly, we have the actual Enrage talent itself. Your melee hits have a 9% chance to enrage you, giving you a 14% damage bonus for 9 seconds. And a lot of the Fury rotation does revolve around trying to get into Enrage as much as possible. We've then got Raging Blow, a mighty blow that deals X amount of weapon damage, that can only be used when we are enraged. We've then got Rampage, increasing the crit strike chance of all party and raid members within 100 yards by 5%. Top right of my screen, you can see that that buff is going to be there at all times. In addition, for you personally, it's also going to add another 2% crit chance. We've then got Heroic Fury, removes any immobilization effects and replenishes your cooldown of your intercept ability. This is basically just a utility spell that we are getting through the talent tree. 2 out of 2 into Meat Cleaver, dealing damage with Cleave or Whirlwind, 2 of our AoE abilities there, increases the damage of Cleave and Whirlwind by 10%, but for 10 seconds, and that can stack. Basically just enhancing how much damage we're going to be doing, when we actually do our AoE rotation. Intensify Rage reduces the cooldown on Berserker Rage, Recklessness and Death Wish by 20%. This is one of the abilities here. The other 2 are some DPS cooldowns I'll be showing you shortly. Blood Surge, your Bloodthirst hits have a 30% chance of making your next slam instant free and deal 20% more damage for 10 seconds. When Bloodthirst procs, we will be using our slam because it will be instant and free, etc., and doing more damage. If you ever see a slam light up, it's going to be from Bloodthirst, use it at that point. Skirmisher, reducing the cooldown of our Intercept and Heroic Leap by 20 seconds. And lastly, Titan's Grip. You can also choose Single-Minded Fury rather than Titan's Grip, and it just depends on what weapons you as a Fury Warrior have available to you at the time. If you're not sure which weapon to use, then go by the highest eye level, which is going to give you more strength and better secondary stats. So what do they do then? Well, Titan's Grip allows you to equip 2-handed axes, maces, and swords in one hand, meaning you can have one of each 2-handers. Or Single-Minded Fury, when you dual wield one-handed weapons, you deal 20% additional damage and slam hits with both weapons. So if it happens that loot has dropped and you've got 2 one-handed weapons that are higher eye level over your 2-handed weapons, then go for your one-handing. If you have better 2-handed weapons that are higher eye level, go for Titan's Grip. It really just depends on what you have available to you. We're then going to put a few points into the Protection and Arms tree. 2 out of 2 into Insight, increasing the critical strike of your Heroic Strike and giving the Heroic Strike a 66% chance when it does a crit to cause the next Heroic Strike to also be a critical strike. The subsequent critical strike cannot then trigger that again, and it won't go on forever, therefore. But this is, again, on this one, Heroic Strike here, that we're going to be using to dump all of our rage, and when we get a Battle Trance proc. For the last few talents, we're going Field Dressing, increasing all healing received, and increasing self-heals. War Academy, increasing the damage of some of our core abilities. And lastly, Deep Wounds. Your critical strikes are also going to cause a bleed or dot damage over time. That means on your enemy over 6 seconds. For the glyphs we're taking, we're going with Slam, increasing the crit strike chance of Slam by 5%. Raging Blow, doing the same thing for that ability. And Glyph of Bloodthirst, increasing the damage done by that ability. These 3 are all pretty much mandatory for the prime glyphs. And then the major glyphs, we have a bit more room to choose really what matters more. The only mandatory one I'd say is Cleaving, increasing the number of targets that Cleave will hit. It usually hits 2 targets. This will make it hit 3 targets. And in AoE situations, this obviously is really beneficial. After that, I'm going for Shield Wall, which is a defensive increase. Shield Wall is a defensive, reducing how much damage you take. Shield Wall now reduces damage taken by an additional 20%, but its cooldown is increased by 2 minutes. It's usually 40% reduction on a 5-minute cooldown. This adds it to 60% damage reduction on a 7-minute cooldown. So depending on how often you're going to need it and how much damage is incoming, would really change your thinking on if you need to be taking this glyph or not, and what is more beneficial to you. I've also taken the Glyph of Deathwish, where it no longer increases damage taken. This is something that Deathwish also actually done. Deathwish, remember, is this cooldown here, where you become enraged. It would enrage you, dealing more damage, however you'd take increased damage, and I've kind of just removed that so that we can play it a bit safer. And also, oh, that's all free. But the ones you could take instead, if you don't want to go with this setup, could be Colossus Smash, where your Colossus Smash applies Sunder Armor to the target, meaning when you use that ability, it's going to reduce the target's armor slightly. The same thing with Heroic Throw, an ability you can use when you go into battle. Your Heroic Throw will also apply a stack of Sunder Armor. Again, this is a buff that you or another warrior could be putting on the target. Let's say, for example, if an arms or protection warrior is already putting 3 stacks of Sunder Armor on to the target, you don't need to be using these glyphs. It literally will be rendered useless, and it does depend on what setup of a group you've got in your group or raid. For the minor glyphs, I like to go for Berserker Rage, where it generates more rage when used. This is a cooldown I'm going to be talking through shortly. Bloody Healing, increasing healing you receive from Bloodthirst by 40%, adding more survivability. And Glyph of Battle, increasing the duration by 2 minutes in your area of effect by 50% of your battle shout. You can also swap this to Commanding Shout if you'll be using Commanding Shout and not Battle Shout. So how does it all come together into a rotation? We're going to start off here with the single target rotation, and then I'm going to go through the changes we're making for AoE or multiple target rotations, and also cooldowns, etc. So as I've gone into battle and I'm using my auto attacks, you can see I've triggered Enrage, increasing our damage dealt, meaning we can use our Raging Blow. You can only use it, remember, when you are enraged, and we do have a high chance when we're using our auto attacks that we are going to get enraged. So one thing I want to say is that Bloodthirst is your most important ability, and we should be using this on every other global cooldown, meaning we're going to use it as our attack every second ability. So Bloodthirst, something else, Bloodthirst, something else, Bloodthirst, something else. That is how the rotation is generally going to go. So Bloodthirst is on a 3-second cooldown and instantly attacks a target, causing X amount of damage, obviously doing more if you're enraged or not. In addition, the 3 next melee attacks will restore a small amount of health. This effect lasts 8 seconds, and damage is based on your attack power. The next one is going to be Colossus Smash, smashing the target for weapon damage plus X amount of damage, weakening their defenses, allowing your attacks to entirely bypass 100% of their armor for the next 6 seconds. Now remember I said we're going to go Bloodthirst, something else, Bloodthirst, something else? So because we're reducing their armor by 100% when we use this, we want to be able to use our Raging Blow, which is a really strong attack, as the next one. But, of course, we're going to have to use Bloodthirst first. Meaning, then, you only want to use Colossus Smash if you can use Raging Blow within the next 6 seconds after using it. To put this into practice, we're going to use Bloodthirst, and then we're going to use Colossus Smash, then back to Bloodthirst, and then Raging Blow. And you are only going to use Colossus Smash if we can use Raging Blow in the next 6 seconds, including alternating with our Bloodthirsts. So again, it would then be basically Bloodthirst, then Colossus Smash, then Raging Blow, then Bloodthirst, etc., etc. And you can delay your Colossus Smash by a few seconds if you're not enraged. After that, the priority is going to be using Raging Blow. If we can't use it at this point, feel free to use your Berserker Rage in Raging You, guaranteed, and then we can use it. Again, then going back to Bloodthirst. And then it would be, at this point, going into Colossus Smash, and then using our Raging Blow, Bloodthirst, and then Raging Blow, alternating between them again. The next priority is going to be Slam, and you only want to use Slam if it has procced from your Blood Surge talent, meaning it's instant and free. As a reminder, that's this talent here. Your Bloodthirsts have a 30% chance to make your next Slam instant free and deal more damage. And we're only going to use Slam at the point that it is instant. You can also make a macro for this, which I will put in the description so that you can automatically cancel your Slam if you accidentally press it and it isn't instant. If you are dual wielding single handed weapons in single-minded Fury. One thing to mention is that actually you want to swap these like this in rotation. Slam is actually going to be more important if you are dual-wielding one-handed weapons. If you're using two-handed weapons, however, the rotation would look how I've just shown it. So you can swap Raging Blow with Slam if you're using single-minded Fury. Keep it how it is on my action bar right here if you're using Titan's Grip. After that, we are going to be using our Heroic Strike to dump any excess rage we have, trying not to cap it over 100 rage. And don't forget to also use it when you get a proc from Battle Trance. Bloodthirst, Mortal Strike and Shield Slam, the main one here being Bloodthirst, have a 15% chance to make your next special attack consume no rage. So if you ever see that proc, make sure to use your Heroic Strike and also use it just to spend all of your excess rage that you have. So just to recap so far then, we're going to be using our Bloodthirst as every other ability. So Bloodthirst something else, Bloodthirst something else. We're then going to use our Colossus Smash as long as we can do a Bloodthirst and then a Raging Blow straight after. After that, we're going to use our Berserker Rage and use Raging Blow whenever we can when we are enraged. We're only going to use Slam if it is instant and has procced, which you will see it light up. And then we're going to be using our Heroic Strike to dump any excess rage, especially when we get a Battle Trance proc as well, meaning it will be free. After that, we can use our Execute as an execute ability when the target reaches 20% health or below. If we're actually looking at doing this as an AoE rotation rather than single target, there's a few changes we will make. If there are only two targets, do the exact same rotation, but rather than using Heroic Strike, just use Cleave instead, a sweeping attack that strikes the target and 2 additional nearby allies. If there is only 3 targets, so rather than 2 targets, there's now 3, we're actually just going to use Cleave and Bloodthirst. So Bloodthirst, Cleave, Bloodthirst, Cleave, Bloodthirst, Cleave, and that is literally it for 3 targets. That actually comes out at higher DPS than using everything else. And then if there's 4 or more enemies, then we're actually going to add in our Whirlwind and Cleave, which may not be very useful if you have rage limitations. Cleave does use 30 rage, Whirlwind uses 25, and they are on a short cooldown. Use your Bloodthirst in between that as well, and you should be fine, but that is for 4 or more enemies. For the cooldowns, we've got a few. Don't forget to be using your shouts, and you've also got a demoralizing roar you can use as well. You should be using that every 30 seconds. It reduces the physical damage caused by all enemies within 10 yards by 10%. So use that and keep that up on the target, and also keep up your battle shout every 4 minutes, or commanding, depending on which you're using, on your party at all times. We've then got Death Wish, Recklessness, and Inner Rage down here. These are our main offensive cooldowns. You should be using your Death Wish and Recklessness as much as possible, and at the same time if you wish. Remember, with Death Wish, when activated, you become enraged, doing a massive amount of extra damage, and Recklessness grants your special attacks an additional 50% chance to critically hit, but increases all damage taken by 20%. The last one is Inner Rage. It reduces the cooldown of Heroic Strike and Cleave by 50% for 15 seconds, meaning if you've got a load of rage to dump, you can use your Cleave or Heroic Strike, depending on how many targets you have, a lot more often. And it works well with your Death Wish and Recklessness as well, because you're doing more damage. And then obviously Inner Rage, which is only on a 30-second cooldown, so you can use it a hell of a lot, actually gets out and spending more rage in that DPS window where you're doing higher damage. On defensive cooldowns, we have Shield Wall and Rallying Cry. Do be aware, Shield Wall, in able to actually be able to use it, you are going to need to equip a shield, so it is a bit annoying if you want to use it in Fury. And Rallying Cry on a 3-minute cooldown, temporarily granting you and allies 20% of their maximum health for 10 seconds. However, once this effect ends, they will lose that additional health that they have gained. For utilities, don't forget your Pummel, which is used for interrupting and kicking any spellcasting, and you will actually do increased damage after you use it, remember. And also we have Intimidating Shout on a 2-minute cooldown, causing the targeted enemy to cower in fear, and up to 5 additional enemies within 8 yards to flee as well. That's really it for the main rotations as a Fury Warrior. The only thing I haven't mentioned really is your stances. Generally, we're going to be in Berserker stance at all times. As Fury, you don't need to really stance like you can with Arms. A Berserker stance, an aggressive combat stance that increases your damage done by 10%. If you are wondering, the reason Arms warriors need to actually stance with Battle Stance is because some of their abilities can only be done in battle and some can only be done in Berserker. We don't really have that problem as a Fury Warrior, however. For things like professions and gems, etc., first things first. you are going to need to get your reputations done. And this is going to be with the Wild Hammer or Dragon Maw, depending if you are Horde or Alliance in the Twilight Highlands, and also Pharazane. The head slot, as you can see above me, does come from the Twilight Highlands reputations, and the shoulder is from Pharazane. There is also a blue revered one if you can't be bothered to get to Exalted for the epic version. For the gems, I would go for a bold Inferno Ruby in your red slot, adding strength, a fierce Ember Topaz in your yellow slot, adding strength and haste, and in the blue slot it would be an etched Demon's Eye, adding 20 strength and hit rating. Of course, that's assuming you haven't quite hit your hit cap yet. For the meta gem, I would go for the reverberating Shadow Spirit Diamond, adding strength and crit effect. Interestingly, on the professions, I actually recommend you go for tailoring, which may sound bizarre, and if you would like to go for something more standard for a warrior like blacksmithing, that's fine. However, tailoring is going to actually be the best if you are looking to min-max. It adds the tailoring cloak enchant, which is sword guard embroidery, giving your attacks a chance to sometimes increase your attack power by 1,000 by 15 seconds. Roughly worked out, I've done the maths on this, it's about 120 strength you're going to get from this overall, whereas all of the other professions add equally 80 strength, meaning that tailoring is going to be best. I then think enchanting is a good and easy one to go for. That adds 40 strength on each ring with the enchant, totaling again at 80 enchanting. Things like alchemy, etc. are also fine. You get a mixology buff if you'd like to go alchemy, meaning that your flask will give you an extra 80 strength on there. And blacksmithing, if you do go with it, adds 2 socketable slots on your gear, meaning you can put more bold Inferno Rubies in, adding 40 strength in each, equaling 80 strength again. For the weapon enchant, which is the only other main one, it would be Landslide, again a chance to increase your attack power massively for 12 seconds when striking in melee. For the consumables, it's pretty straightforward. Flask of Titanic Strength, adding strength for an hour. Golem Blood Potion is your cooldown, and you should use this with things like Death Wish, etc. when you're in your big damage cooldown window. Beerbast Crocolisk, or of course the Feast that everyone will be putting out in Raid, adding 90 strength and 90 stamina for an hour, and a mythical healing potion if you do need it is the one you will be using. And that is it for how to play Fury Warrior in Cataclysm Classic. Hopefully, guys, this was really helpful for you. If you would have any other questions, etc., please feel free to join the Discord, where the community are really helpful, whether you are a veteran or beginner. If you need any extra help from me, please do feel free to join my Patreon, where I've got lots of behind-the-scenes written guides, spreadsheets, and things like that, and also a VIP channel in the Discord, which I always check as a priority to help you guys out when you need it. It does, of course, really help support me as a creator as well if you would like to. A lot of people watch with ad blocks these days, and as gaming creators, especially as smaller ones, don't really make much money from YouTube, and Patreon is a really amazing way of supporting me to make sure I can get these videos out for you guys, as I only do it part-time in my evenings. If you are looking for other Cataclysm Classic PvE guides, whether that's tier lists, rep guides, or other warrior or other class guides, check out this playlist here or my channel, where I've got them all waiting for you.